Oh, we know how you like it. Raw and uncut with DJ Baker.
Go out there, man. Do your thing. All right, go get it.
Shout out to Figgy Baby. We were playing Figgy Baby before with even Taylor Bennett. And, you know, and Figgy is non-binary. So there you go. So you do know people who are non-binary. I know a lot of people. We had celebrated non-binary day a non-binary People's Day this week. I think it was on Monday, and a lot of people I saw going, I don't know anyone non-binary. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Again, Kalani is non-binary, right? Okay. George M. Johnson is non-binary. All boys are blue. There's a lot of them out there. Shout out to the non-binary family. Janelle Monáe. They're all out there. You just gotta get to know them. Exactly. I know it's tough. You know what I'm saying? Getting to know something new in your life, especially for our older generation, very hard to do. I think that's probably the theme of today is the older generation dragging along. Just get into it. I mean, just fall in. Trust the younger generation. And I know that's the problem is trust, right? When we hear about people fighting, that struggle to let the patriarchal, that whole system go, just let it go. It is not for everyone. There are a couple of people, there are probably even many people that actually, will, have monogamous single relationships. But then there are those who may not, who may never have a monogamous, and may not want to have a monogamous. But a lot of times the reason why they're doing the actions that they're doing is because they're not following their heart. They're doing it for parents so they can get married, or doing it for friends so they can, show off pictures of relationships and vacations and things like that. And then you start to feel like, there's something wrong with you. You know what I mean? But there isn't something wrong with you, specifically if that's not how you're feeling. You know what I mean? And things change. People change. So let's talk about Law Roach. Shout out to Law Roach. He's on the new season of Project Runway coming up. He's also in the new season of, RuPaul's Drag Race as a rotating host, along with T.S. Madison. And he's doing this whole image architect. He's got the book out. Go check out the book. You know what I mean? Law Roach has got things going on, okay? And his focus is mostly, his work and his private time, his time to himself. His downtime, he doesn't, like he said, he doesn't go out and party as much as he used to. He's not really into that. He's more into, okay, what are we doing for, an event, or what are we doing for this situation, or what am I designing, or what am I cultivating, what am I need to get this outfit. That's where his mind lies. Probably has a couple of friends, good, close Judies that he calls, and, let's go have brunch and let's talk, let's hang out. You know what I'm saying? Probably has a couple of celebrity friends. You already know. I don't consider Zendaya a friend. I consider that his family. But I'm sure he has some other friends that he sees. I mean, even the way he was sitting down with Kiki said friendly, right? Like they've had a conversation about this, huh? You know what I mean? They've had a conversation about this. And shout out to Kiki for getting back up on that horse, you know what I'm saying, and actually interviewing people that we want to hear from. See Kiki, how when you interview people that we want to hear from, you don't have to go to the toxic dark places just to prove that you're a journalist. I'm just saying, you don't have to uplift these garbage men. There are some really great good men out there, hetero and LGBT alike, queer alike, you know what I mean? So shout out to Laura Roach, who sat down and he talked about how he doesn't really think about relationships. She says, I noticed that you don't talk about, going on dates and meeting men, or or even think about, marriage or anything. And he was like, well, that's something that I just don't, that's not my focus. You know what I'm saying? And, and he said, I have a friend that, has all that, and he was praying for me. And I was like, no, but we'll save your prayer. I actually think that it's a lot bolder and a lot more accepting. And I think this is someone who's leaning into the future. When you start to understand it, that's what it is, right? I think we need to put a name on it, though. And I'm glad that someone left a comment in the Gay Magazine post about this, because because this is exactly what I think it is also. So remember, I for me, I said, what did demi. I'm a demisexual, right? Turned on by, conversations and things like that. I love doing the conversating and joking around and having a good time. A lot of that is what turns me on about, my mister. You know what I mean? That's what gets me, going. And so for, people like Whoopi, we hear about Whoopi with this a lot of times too. And we hear about this from now, Law Roach. Now, I saw someone put asexual and aromantic are the two labels, if you like to say, identifying the sexual identifiers that these people may be dealing with. And so you'll help you understand who they are and why they are the way they are. I saw a couple of people in the comments saying that's me too. I'm concerned about my work and my time with my friends and and my time to myself, and having a partner sort of takes away maybe one or two of the situations as much as you'd like to. Instead of spending time around friends, you're mostly spending time around family. You know what I'm saying? Either creating your own family or, you know what I'm saying? You feel what I'm talking about, right? But when you're single, you're able to just focus mostly on family, a little bit about yourself. You get your little time to yourself. You get to say when you want to go out, when you don't want to go out. You don't have to. A lot of people are like that. I don't want to be, bogged down. Now, a lot of people may say that may be the reason, because we're mixing trauma with identity. I personally think for Law Roach, it's his identity. And this is why I say this. It says definition of asexual is describes an individual who has experienced little or no sexual attraction towards others. It is not a choice or a medical condition. This is just who they are. This is what I'm saying. So for him to accept that, listen, don't pray for me in a relationship. That's not what I think about when I'm around, people. Which we'll call it was like this too. Tim Gunn. He was exactly the same way. And a lot of people didn't understand it. They just didn't understand. Well, how could you not have sex with such and such? Well, first of all, there's all types of tools and you know what I mean? You don't really need anybody nowadays. You know what I mean? Getting off is getting off. You know what I mean? And I think this is a lot of it is supposed to be the way it is. I think it is the natural order of population control. I think that nature knows about population control by creating different people. I even think, if you want to take this to religious and spiritual, because I know there's a couple of God people in the room, I think that's how God made it. He didn't make us all to be having children. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. That's a population issue with that. And more we keep multiplying. This is why we have no resources on this damn planet, because all we do is keep making, taking, and then not preserving. And I think if people understood a lot more about their sexual identity, who they are sexually on the scale, that they would understand a lot more about the decisions and the relationships that they get into. They're not going to get into, try to even just do this thing where they're getting in a relationship only to disappoint that other partner because the partner wants to do this, and that. And they're like, well, I'm just chill. I'm not. I'd rather be working. I'd rather be this. I'd rather be, doing something else. And so the lack of attention to the children, they're just doing it because it's a patriarchal thing. It's a power trip. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about mostly the heterosexual men who don't know how to deal with it. They're the most degressive people and gender identity I've ever seen is the heterosexual male. I think they're stuck in some warp. And I think that they're going to be the last of the groups to move forward. I think there's a lot of people, LGBT people included, who have moved into a position of understanding where they land in this situation compared to some heterosexuals. I also heard Aromantic. Let me get into that. That includes individuals who experience little or no romantic attraction towards others. They have no sexuality or is a sexual orientation and does not involve necessarily correlate. It says romantic individuals still desire and engage in romantic relationships, but for various reasons, companionship and society pressures. See what I'm saying? So you're still formed into these things because of the society. But there are people who, this is why those are nuns. The nuns who are happily not having sex because they don't want to have sex because they want to give their life to God. Well, that's because they've found something else to focus on, whether that be spirituality or not. And I think that even that's what you would consider a nun, someone who is focused on their job of spreading the good word of the gospel. That is a job. It's a job. That's why they live their life doing that. And so for me, this is why I say that I think we just all, as the summer goes forward and we celebrate Pride and we understand that, everybody's got a place and everyone has a loved one and loved ones and but that everybody is going to follow the same relationship path as others. And I think putting that pressure on certain people who are saying they don't want it, there's a difference between, you saying you want it and then you're not getting it and so you're frustrated with that. And there's a difference between someone who's saying, I don't want any of that. I don't really want any of that. I just want to focus on my work. And I'm not a capitalist. There are people who are just doing the work because they love to do the work. You know what I mean? And it doesn't necessarily have to do with money also. So there's a lot of, intersections and overlapping situations. But this is the process in which our next generation Alpha and Beta, will be wrestling with as we go forward, All right. There you go. I mean, that was a good one, right? Shout out to Lord Roach. Congratulations on everything that's going on with you. Can we send him a basket? Thank you. And don't forget, you can catch him on this season's Project Runway and RuPaul's Drag Race. I think he's doing rotating, right? But in Project Runway, he is a judge, right? He is a judge. He's a judge. Who am I to judge? Okay? Download the We Are Your Radio, everyone. That way you don't miss a thing. You got so much more coming up. Keep it locked here.
Oh, we know how you like it. Raw and uncut with DJ Baker.
Go out there, man. Do your thing. All right, go get it.